So, a gameplay trailer for Silent Hill 2 Remake finally came out after a year of basically radio silence from both Konami and Bloober Team. And I would say that it doesn't look reassuring or promising, but those would be an understatement, alright? It doesn't look good at all. It's disappointing. While it's important to note that this is only a trailer, this is still what they're comfortable showcasing after a year since the reveal. This trailer dropped on January 31st, so a little over a week ago, and since I've seen it a few times by now, I figured we could watch it together while I go over everything wrong that I have noticed. Alrighty, so right off the bat, firstly, on the PlayStation account, this is called the Combat Reveal trailer and not just a gameplay trailer, which is weird because, while the trailer does show a lot of the gameplay, it's not something you should emphasize, right? It's not like Silent Hill's known for its intense and hype combat, even though it is important, it's the survival aspect of the survival horror, but still, it's just a weird choice to call it that. But anyway, let's press play. Let's see what we got here. I'll pause periodically to talk about specific things. I do want to say the graphics are fine for, I guess, where we are in the modern day landscape. They could be better, but they really aren't that bad. And I do like this part of the trailer where it's very calm, quiet. Where we saw a few of the iconic puzzles there, but here you can see that there's not a whole lot of fog. This is the first problem that I have, that the fog in itself looks fine, but there's not enough of it. It seems like they wanted to make it very intense, like very overpowering fog, but to compensate for the lack of visibility, they just made it so that there's not a whole lot, which is weird because it's Silent Hill, it should be foggy. I get that the original Silent Hill games had the fog to mask the software limitations of the game, right? It covered up all the rendering distance and shit, but it's become so iconic now that even if you may not need it, you should still have all that fog. And here's the combat, James with the plank of wood. And here's the other big thing. Whoops. Fucking skipped it. So we're showcasing the combat, and then there it is. A X prompt. A generic PlayStation X prompt. This is the big problem that a lot of people had immediately, because you see James swinging the plank of wood, right? It looks very on the rails right off the bat, which isn't a good sign. And then you have this X prompt here, which is like, what the fuck is this? This is, if you've ever played a Silent Hill game, or at least the OGs, the good ones, they're not the type of games that have a giant flashing prompt on the middle of the screen for QTE. This is such a weird choice by Bloober Team. It makes me feel like they really didn't understand the assignment, nor does Konami. Who has faith in Konami anymore anyway? But it's so weird. It's not even immersive. Like, they didn't put any effort into making it, like, immersive into the gameplay itself. It's the most generic, uninspired looking prompt. It is a flashing, bland X in the middle of the screen while you get grabbed. And also shows that, sleeping or lying figures, forgot the name for a second, will grab you, and nurses will later. I'll talk about that when we get to it, but again, the graphics do look fine in themselves. The gunplay doesn't look great. It doesn't look that satisfying. It's very quiet. The guns sound like they're silenced. Like, there's no impact in that shooting. None. And obviously Silent Hill's not about impactful shooting or intense shooting, but still, if you're going to remake it and kind of copy Resident Evil Remake for over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, at least make it feel immersive. That's just so quiet and unimpactful. And again, here's another X prompt, which shows me if they're showing this twice in a row, this is going to be super common and super annoying. Being command grabbed by enemies and having to fucking mash X to get them off you, which is the last thing you want to be feeling while you're playing a Silent Hill game, especially Silent Hill 2. The masterclass of psychological horror is annoyance during combat. You don't want it to ruin the whole moment for you, right? And then a kind of remake for the theme of Laura. Yamaoka, the original composer, is doing the music again, so not much to say about that. But yeah, he had the rifle, the pipe. You see the enemy goes into kind of a crouching state. I don't know if there's like states for damaging enemies. There's also variety on those nurses there, so there's going to be type variety between the different enemy types themselves. But yeah, when you shoot this lying figure in the knees, it goes into a crouch. which again is very copycat of them to do if you compare it to Resident Evil 4, which also had a remake last year, right? But here's the big thing I want to show. This goofy-ass stomp. The animation looks super janky, super stiff. It does not look like a AAA game coming out in 2024, especially for Silent Hill 2, which, again, the combat has never been, like, the focal point of the gameplay, right? Like, nobody's ever praised Silent Hill for having amazing combat, but if you're going to remake this game, you need to justify a gameplay remake. If you're going to, completely rebuild the gameplay from the ground up, you need to make it look good enough to justify the changes. And I mean, just look at this stomp. It just looks goofy. Has like a fucking royalty-free sound effect. Hold on, let's do playback speed super slow real quick. I need to emphasize how bad this stomp looks. Yeah, we'll start from here. Goes into like a weird crouch. Yeah, no, I'm not impressed with that at all. Especially since stomping in the original game was like your kill check, your double tap, whatever. It'll let you, verify that the enemy's actually dead. And again, the gunplay doesn't look or sound great. It doesn't feel impactful. This nurse fucking vaults over this ledge like it's Assassin's Creed. I had to get pointed out by a buddy of mine, and even then I had to rewatch this trailer a few times to even notice this. What the fuck is she doing? Why? Why is this in Silent Hill 2? Why is a nurse vaulting to get to James? And there's also just a big influx of enemies in these hallways. Like you can see, it looks like they're gonna jam-pack the hallways and the small rooms with enemies. Just stop focusing on this combat aspect of the game. It's the least. People don't want to fight a fucking mob of enemies in every room they go into. It's not a action horror game. It's a survival psychological horror game, and not just one of them, the one. You're supposed to nail this game's atmosphere and tone, and don't put so much emphasis into the combat here. Sorry, I just hit the mic. But yeah, it's just annoying. It does not look good. Royalty-free sound effects. Looks cheap, like they made it on a budget. And then, of course, Pyramid Head. I'm pretty sure that's one of his first encounters because we need to cash in on our iconic, monster figure. And another thing I want to point out is no release date still. It's been over a year since the reveal trailer and no release date. You get less than 2 minutes of gameplay and in development for PlayStation 5, no date given on the release. So it's pretty mediocre trailer. Like I've been saying, it's not very promising. Yeah, that's about it. So overall, you might be thinking that this trailer looks fine, and I would agree with you, it looks just fine, which would be okay for any other survival horror game, but this is Silent Hill 2, the GOAT if you will. And the fact that it's fine will be enough for Konami and Bloober Team since they're clearly developing these Silent Hill projects on a budget. I mean, just look at every other Silent Hill release since the transmission. They've all been terrible, just trash, and I've heard that Bloober Team considers their remake to be finished by now, and are just waiting for Konami to greenlight the release, which is very concerning because all this means that this is most likely what the final product will look like, despite the fact that it is in dire need of more polish. It looks fine at best, which you'd expect, but I and many others were hoping for better, for this game to be the best it could be, and that Bloober Team could finally produce a great game after all the worry caused by them getting the rights to develop this remake. The worst thing this game could be is mediocre, because if it was at least laughably bad, then it would be a fun time to criticize it and disregard it as a trash game while reinforcing people's love for the original. But if it's just fine, mediocre, and forgettable, then it will forever be a blemish on Silent Hill 2 and an example of failed potential that another remake probably won't attempt to fix ever again. The worst sin a game can commit is being boring, which I must say is the direction this combat looks like it will take so far, and I'm very disappointed, but will remain hopeful until the game actually releases. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say regarding this trailer. Not my usual style of video, but this has been on my mind the past week, and I haven't uploaded in a while, so I figured, why not? Hope you enjoyed, and let's all hope Silent Hill 2 Remake pulls through and ends up being a good game. Stay safe, everyone.